Welcome to Blooming Wildwood Homestead. Today we're going to take a look at some insect damage that is occurring on the Brussels sprouts and talk a little bit about how we can manage that at this particular stage of development. Brussels sprouts can be really tricky here in the Pacific Northwest, mainly because they are in the Brassica family and they take a really long time to develop and get to maturity. During that time, it's easy for them to become insect prone. And if you're not careful and keeping a lookout, it can happen before you even know what's been going on. This particular Brussels sprout had been giving some trouble during the summer. You'll notice here, especially up at the top, there is some leaf damage, and this was due to aphids. So this plant had already been getting attacked by aphids. I was spraying it down the best that I could during the summertime, trying to wash it off. Aphids are a little bit tricky to try to manage organically just because they multiply so quickly. And it is harvest season, so I wasn't out here keeping an eye on these as well as I should have been because I've been busy processing things. And let me just tell you, this has gotten completely ravaged in the short time that I haven't been keeping a close eye on it. So we started out with some aphid damage up here, and now you can see not only do we have aphid damage, but we also are dealing with some flea beetles as well. Because the plant was already compromised, the flea beetles have just moved in and are continuing to demolish the plant. I really don't know if it's going to be able to be salvaged or come back around because this one here is in particularly bad shape. But we're going to do our best to at least alleviate the insect damage here so that it's not spreading to the rest of the brassicas. What I really wanted to show you today is the aphids and talk a little bit about aphid damage. So we're going to look at another Brussels sprout plant and zoom in a little bit closer. All right, here we are getting right into the aphids. And again, you can see we've got gray, all of this gray right in here is showing you aphids and aphid damage. So it's very prevalent on this particular plant. You can see these little guys moving. Those are aphids. They come in a lot of different colors. Mainly, I've seen them in gray and sometimes green around here. If you can see over here, because again, it's getting attacked by aphids, we've got the flea beetles moving in as well, trying to damage the plant. I've noticed that we tend to have the largest amount of difficulty with aphids early on in the season, more in the springtime, and then also later in the fall. It seems like during summer it's a little easier to kind of manage them, maybe by spraying the plant down with water and trying to keep things under control in that way. Aphids multiply rather quickly. So I was doing a little bit of research, kind of trying to see why it is that aphids are such a problem. And what happens is a female aphid will have a life expectancy of about 25 days, during which time she will reproduce 80 aphid babies. So that can show you just how quickly the aphid destruction can get out of control. And then as we get into the fall time, they will lay eggs that will last throughout the winter, so when spring comes, that crop is hatching out and attacking those plants right away. So you really want to stay up on aphids and try and make sure that you're not having that aphid damage, because it will make a big difference on your plants and really stress them out. The other issue that we run into towards the fall is the ant situation. Now, I don't see any ants in the Brussels sprout patch right now, but at my old urban location, in my raised bed, I had a lot of those little sugar ants, and they were farming aphids onto the brassica plants. So they would ship them in and let the aphids suck all the juices out of the plant, and then the ants would come back and attack the aphids and get that fuel. So ants can also be a situation. If you're ending up with a lot of aphids and you see ants around, you're going to want to attack from both sides, try and take care of both the aphids and the ants. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I try and do things as organic as possible, which can make it a little bit challenging when you're trying to deal with pests that you end up with in the garden. Obviously, first and foremost, you want to be feeding the plants so that they're healthy and as robust as possible, and then you also want to make sure that they're getting plenty of water, and just overall care is pretty good, and that's going to help the plant to be able to fend off some of these critters that we don't want to have. At this point in the game, you can see we've got some major problems going on here with both a combination of aphids and flea beetles. So I need to hit this heavy so that we can try and get it under control before the entire Brussels sprout crop is lost. I'm going to be cleaning out all of the leaf debris underneath just to try and eliminate places where the aphids could be hiding or the flea beetles could hide, trying to get that kind of out of the way. And then we're going to sprinkle the plants with a little bit of diatomaceous earth in order to try and get this cleared up so that the plants can continue to grow and be productive. Just a couple more things that I should mention before we go ahead and sprinkle these plants with diatomaceous earth. You do want to be careful that you are cognizant of the beneficial insects that might be in your area. For example, on aphids, the ladybug and lacewing beetles are both natural predators of the aphids. So if you see a large population of those bugs around, you might not want to use the diatomaceous earth, and you might opt for a more slow method as far as really spraying them down firmly with the water. I am not seeing any beneficial insect activity here, which is probably why the aphids have gotten out of control to start with. In the future, I might want to bring in some of those beneficial insects in order to try and manage this if it continues to be a major problem. The other thing that you want to be aware of is if you have any pollinators in the area. If your plant was flowering and it was attracting bees, then you wouldn't want to use the diatomaceous earth because it's going to kill off your pollinators, and that is definitely not something that we want to do. But none of these Brussels sprouts are blooming, so we don't have that to worry about, and there aren't any blooming plants nearby that are going to be attracting those bees. The third disclaimer has to do with you yourself. When you're using diatomaceous earth, just make sure that you're using gloves to sprinkle it onto the plant, and make sure that you're not inhaling the dust yourself. So if it's pretty windy, you might want to wait until the air's a little bit calmer before you go and put it on the plant. Or if you're downwind, you might want to move to a different location. Just be careful that you're not breathing it in, because it could be harmful to you as well. All right, I've cleaned out a little bit underneath. It's not perfect, but it's a little better than it was, and I think we're ready to go ahead and apply the diatomaceous earth. You can buy Diatomaceous Earth in a variety of different ways. Sometimes you can get a shaker bottle, and that'll work okay. And sometimes you can get a big bag, which is what this actually came from. I'm using food grade Diatomaceous Earth, which is supposed to be better for humans and food and all that stuff. I still wouldn't want to put it on something that I'm going to be eating tomorrow. And whatever has been treated with it, I would still wash really, really well, even though it is a natural substance. In this case, I don't believe this Brussels sprout plant is going to come back, but I'm treating it to prevent issues on the other plants. Alright, it now looks like it has snowed on the Brussels sprouts. We've got a little bit of Diatomaceous Earth on there. Hopefully it's going to take care of the flea beetles and the aphids. I hope today's video was helpful to you. If you've been struggling with your plants and just feeling overwhelmed because there's so much to do right now, just get back out there, take a look at things, analyze where they're at, and if you have an insect problem or a drought problem or something going on, it's not too late. Just try and address the situation and then move on from there. So don't forget to click like and subscribe. I can't wait to see you back here in our next video. Until next time, bye everyone.